Lítur það svo það?
Nei, það tökum við þarna og það þarf ofna þetta.
Það læst þetta fram okkur?
Það er fram.
Já.
Það þarf ofna halda grettar ef við líka lefa.
Já. Það komið inn hérna hingum eða?
Já.
Já, ok, það rópið hérna.
Du var casual.
Hvað séu þið?
Cloud Sugar Tal. Hello and welcome to the second round of the Icelandic Chess Championship. We left you yesterday hanging with Gretarsson against Jensson, which Helgi managed to beat. He managed to win in nice fashion from the Taras province. So we have three leaders actually. Hannes Stefansson, Helgi Gretarsson and Bragi Þorfinnsson, who each managed to win their games in the first round. So I think it's time we start catching up in the games. Let's go here so we don't have the flickering of the board. And I haven't seen any games, so I have no clue what's going on. We'll start with Hjartansson against Steingrímsson. And they are already 15 moves in, and Gummi has built up half an hour time match already, so it looks like he surprised his opponent. We started out with e4, we had c5, and standard Sicilian moves. Yeah, the board is a little bit. We have to repaint it. Old trick. Knight f6, knight c3, a6. So we have the knight off. And well, since Gummi has been playing more or less knight f3 and c4 type of openings, this might come as a slight surprise to Héðinn. Yeah, I just found out I have to fix something on the web page. So just a moment. Tricky business. Go to live edit. Full width disable sidebar. That's better. So yeah, this might have come as a surprise to Steingrimsson, who doesn't like surprises and spent a lot of time in the opening. H3, yeah, it's not a very common move. If I look up the reference database and finish my chocolate bar while I'm at it, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. The 10th most popular move. No, it's going up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's number 6 now. So probably gaining in popularity in recent years. So most likely he spent most of his time on this move, but bishop b7, f4, pawn takes, bishop takes, knight c6. So white creates this weakness in his own camp, and actually a lot of weak squares on the king side, but this signals that he wants to attack, well, castle queen side and attack here on the king side. Makes no sense to castle king side when you create so many weaknesses with h3. So white, does he create this weakness, this weak pawn, and gives black this weak square? Well, we also have pressure on to make another move. Queen, actually queen e2, okay. We also have ideas of knight d5 in some positions, and we will have pressure on this pawn. So there are pros and cons here, definitely. Knight went to d7, he wants to put a knight on this e5 square and be able to recapture with a knight. Castles, knight c2, e5. White played king b1, which is very often a prophylactic move that you want to play in the Sicilian before you begin active operations. So king b1, black castled, knight jumped back to d4, rook to c8, and now queen e3. And seeing that Gummi has not spent much time, his clock shows 1 minute and 27 seconds. We can predict that he's more or less within his preparation, only a few moves out maybe. And meanwhile, here is down to 15 minutes, so already a big time match for white. But yeah, there's nothing awfully critical going on at the moment. It looks like a typical Sicilian position. Black played g6 here. Doesn't want to allow any jumps to f5. So yeah, the question is now, how does white continue? Maybe bishop h6. Maybe we have ideas in the future of g4 and a knight jump here to f5, possibly, in conjunction with bishop h6. But yeah, we'll leave this game for now and jump over to what? Let's see. How about Þórðarson against Gutarsson? Thruster coming off a loss yesterday. Let's find his game. Skyim. Thruster against Heroes. Thruster with white. And we have another Sicilian, so looks like the players are out for blood in this round. And that makes sense. It looks like we'll have a really active tournament. A closely contested tournament, you know, 6 grandmasters. So you need to get some wins to be in contention. D4, standard Sicilian stuff. Knight C3, and A6, and now H3. More that has been gaining in popularity. Gummi played it a bit later in the position. Yeah, but yeah, usually the idea is G4. And here what we have to do with E5. Knight D back to E2. B5 and G4. So white wants to develop his bishop here, and shadow it. Put an knight on G3 and maybe even casual kingside, yeah. Looks like that's what he did. G4, bishop to B7. Bishop to G2. Pawn to H6. A3. Knight B7. And we should mention that these two played, well, just about a week ago in the WoW Air tournament, which was held by the Reykjavik Chess Club. 7 round Swiss system, which actually had 4 grandmasters, including the legendary Friedrich Olafsson. And Hjörvar won that tournament with 6.5 out of 7, so Thruster was the only player who managed not to lose against Hjörvar. So castles, well, they're both still above 1 hour on their clock. Thruster has about 9 minutes more than Hjörvar. And yeah, well, white has good control over d5 with this bishop on d2. A lot of pieces pointing to d5 square. There's also a possible stronghold on f5, but I can always play g6 to counter that. Yeah, so now the question is, where do we put the black bishop? Do we put her on e7, or do we play g6, bishop d7? I kind of doubt we go bishop d7, I'm not sure though, but yeah, this is what Hjörvar is thinking about now, where to put the bishop, how to finish development, where to go, what to do. Yeah, look, yeah, Wolf 769 looks solid for white. It can be perhaps a tricky system because this is not the kind of setup you see regularly in the Sicilian. Okay, so just a moment while I set up actually some further boards. Let's just put the pairings on the screen while we do that. So one. Yeah, yesterday I had all the games in the same file, which got a bit confusing once I started adding a lot of variation. So let's just put one board for each game. Makes it easier to navigate. Navigation in the station. Let's come back and see if the boards are lining up okay for me here. Yeah, that was okay. The flickering will go away. Don't worry. It's the flickering. This one is cool. This one I might have to move a little bit up. Yep. Okay. I think we're looking good now. So we're next going to move on to Einar Hjalti Jensson against Bragi Thorfinnsson. Jensson, the late entry to the tournament when Grandmaster Kristjansson withdrew. So short notice for Einar, but fortunately for him, he studies chess a lot, so he's well prepared in many openings. And perhaps that explains why Bragi here with the black pieces actually went pawn to g6 on the second move, and this is often a flexible move. You can go for the modern, you can go for the perk, and I think he wanted to avoid something. He didn't want to play Sicilian or pawn to e5, fearing some preparation from white. He's notoriously good at preparing, and was the second actually for Grandmaster Thoraldsson in his match against Thorfinnsson 2 years ago for the title, which was played here. So, and also think too about Bragi, so I understand why Bragi wanted to change things up. Okay, here we can in Tiger's Modern, which is a book about the modern actually by Tiger. Here he actually just liked a6, just keeping a modern flair on the opening, and the position can get interesting. And okay, classically they're better for white, but it's still tricky and definitely unbalanced, and that's often what you look for. But he actually played knight f6 here, and now we have transposed into the perk. Got the knight f3 castles, bishop d3, c5. There's one line here, an old line. I'm sure I won't remember anything. Let's try it. It's something like this, an old drawing variation. Is it this one? Knight g4, bishop b5, bishop d7, e6, f takes e6. Yeah, it's this one. I think it's this one. Knight g5, bishop takes b5, knight takes e6, bishop takes b4. Knight captures queen, bishop f2 check, and we have perpetual here. And my sister's calling me? What's wrong with you? Yo. Yeah, that's it. I'm sorry. I'm very sorry. Family emergency. No. My sister needs a ride to the airport. What to do? So let's look. Yeah, I think there are a lot of draws. This is a notorious drawing variation. First played, I think, by Yasser Seirawan. I'm just going to open up the reference tab and see if I'm correct. So yeah, opening up the reference tab, there are many games drawn. So yeah, this was played, I think, in the late 1980s rather than early 90s. That's just black elo. Show me Seirawan. Sachs Seirawan, 1988. Yeah. Maybe it was played before, but that's where I know it from. And this was a well-known drawing variation since the early 90s, late 80s, and since then this has been one of the stock draws. So if you see somebody play this, then you can sort of guess that they agreed to a draw before the game. But okay, none of that funny business. Black castle, bishop d3, c5, d takes on c5, and here, since white played bishop d3, there's always usually this stock move here, queen a5, if we put the bishop on e2 or something, and now play c5. And there's always this idea of queen a5, and if you take, there's big pressure on c3. I don't think this matters much. And black is really active here. Maybe it's even better before you castle for black. Play c5, like in the variation with e5. Now if you take queen a5, it's probably a bit stronger. Okay, now d takes c5. Black took back. White castled. Yeah, my point was, yeah, queen a5 now, then there's no knight takes e4 because of the bishop on d3. So white could probably just take here. So that's why black took back, castles, knight to c6, pawn to e5, knight to g4. And here the time situation, also a big time match for Brahe with black. 27 minutes already, which means that mission accomplished. He was not surprised in the opening, and he managed to switch it around, and he was the one actually doing the surprising. So that's the current position, and Brahe, well, Einar Hjalta against Brahe. Let's see some further games, and let's move on to, well, the marquee matchup really. Stefansson against Helgi Gröðarsson. The marquee matchup. So this is the only matchup of the players with 1 point out of the first round. Hannes with white, once again 12-time Icelandic champion, and the black piece is Helgi Gröðarsson. And I made a mistake yesterday. I said we had 2 former World Junior Champions. The truth is, in this tournament there are actually 3 former World Junior Champions. Helgi Gröðarsson with black, he was World Junior Champion in 1994. I think in the under-20 tournament when he was 17. Hannes Stefansson was World Junior Champion, I think, under 16. I think it was 1995. 1995 is 13. It might have been under 14 and maybe 97. Yeah, and Steingrimsson was also World Junior Champion, I think, under 12 or 14. So obviously we had a lot of strong, promising players in the 90s. But okay, enough of that rambling. Black set up the triangle here. And if white goes knight c3, which he didn't, then you have to factor in this variation here. I think it's pawn to a4, something like this. Takes, bishop d2. A5, no. I'm confused. A6, b3. What's the line here? The note boom. Bishop d2. Bishop d2 first, maybe. Yeah. A5. Yeah, it's like this. It's like this, y'all. bishop b7, because b4 we take on b4. Now you play, now you play b4 and bishop b2. Something like this. Really an unbalanced line, and one that black will usually know better if he's playing it. So the most solid option for white is just to go queen c2 here, which white did. And now you can just take on c4. You don't have to sacrifice a pawn, and you can play in solid fashion. This is what I've chosen myself on many occasions in this position. g3, knight b to d7, and now we'll have a closed Catalan position. White will try and play for e4 here. It's a standard break, b6, and e4 is indeed what he played. And probably the most common is to take here when white has more or less a safe edge. We can take on e4 first or play bishop b7, or it's not a big deal. And black is solid, but white always keeps a slight edge. But Helgi actually went for bishop b7, which is also an interesting approach. And keeping things closed, keeping tension. And e takes d5, e takes d5. Yeah. Here I don't really remember the theory, but I remember one interesting maneuver here where white goes queen f5 and after g6 queen h3. I think that's might be some old theory, but interesting. Always found it fascinating somehow. But yeah, they're both with 58 minutes on the clock. Both spent just over 30 minutes on their moves in this game. So let's catch up finally with the last game we haven't looked at, and that will be Henrik with white again. And we could say he gets a rematch because his opponent is also called Guðmundur. We usually go by first name basis in Iceland, so only for you guys we have the last names. Just for you guys. We do everything for you. So Henrik Danielsson white, Guðmundur Gíslason black. And they've played before, of course, like, well, most of the people have in this tournament. And I think they're following something they've played before. Well, not g4, g3, I apologize. Bishop d2, castles, c6. So still black could go d5, going for the Grunfeld. But with d6, he wants to stay in King's Indian territory. Knight bd7. d5 perhaps more solid, but the King's Indian setup may be more dynamic if you want to keep some chances for yourself. Rook d1, queen to e7, pawn to e4. Knight went to b6. We're hitting the pawn here on c4, which explains b3. Bishop to g4, bishop to e3, rook f to e8. So this is really a solid line for white. Yeah, maybe now black is thinking about taking on d4, but okay, we can take with a knight. No, we can't take with a knight because of this. So black is threatening to take on d4 now and hitting e4. So that's why white played d5 actually, which I don't think is that common in these formations, but always possible. Whoa, and we have some action here right away. Action in the station after rook a to c1. Black played. Hold the phone. Knight f takes d5. Whoa, very nice. I guess the idea is if we take with a pawn, then pawn push to e4, hitting c3, hitting f3, and black regains the material. So most likely he will not take with the pawn because this doesn't look all that great. And if we try to give back material like this, okay, the idea is to cross the diagonal, but then we just take here. Yeah, but okay, yeah, we can take with the queen maybe. Thought there was also this, but yeah, but bishop takes d1, queen takes d1. Might be okay for white. I mean, two pieces for a rook and a pawn should be around equal, but in general we prefer the two pieces. So 94, yeah, this might also be an idea. No, then we take the queen on e7 is hanging, so this is not an idea actually, because knight takes d5 is possible. So Henrik is thinking here, most likely this move came as a slight shock, because it doesn't look like it should be working. And maybe it isn't. You can also take with the rook, that's also an idea. And now to make this work, we have to take with the knight. And can white take with the knight? What's the material count here? It looks fine for white actually. So yeah, okay, so in this line black would have to flick in this move. Well, it still doesn't matter. I want to play queen f6, but the knight still covers f6, so I'm not sure if the rook takes d5. What's the idea? Ah, okay. The rook takes d5, bishop takes f3, bishop takes f3, rook takes c3, queen takes c3, knight takes d5, and then e4 finally. But what's the score here? Yeah, looks like after this we would have equal material. I guess what, maybe try something like this. When we are forced to take more or less, but well, not really. I could play here, but unfortunately can't play this because of the background. So we'd have to make Luft. H3 I think, but okay, H4 might be interesting actually. Now we're trying this, but there's king here. Yeah, this looks slightly better for white. I mean, this pawn here could become weak. Actually, I would want to play H3 myself. H3 and G4 to try and attack this. So some complications, but looks like white might be able to force. Worst case scenario, he could force a good ending here with rook takes d5. I don't see anything else for black but to go for this rook takes c3 line. Probably take first this pass then. And yeah, rook takes c3 here. Queen takes, knight takes, e4. Okay, but an interesting position. Yeah. Rook c3 wins a piece. No, I don't think it does. Unless I'm missing something. Okay, so this is the current position. Knight f takes d5. We'll leave it at that, most likely. And then we'll think a bit here. So let's go back to Kjartansson and Steingrímsson. Which we have here. And after g6, Gumi played h4, which was answered by bishop to g4. Yeah, understandably black wants to prevent white from going h5. So maybe he's even going to play h5 here. Just to block everything. Once we take with the knight. The king set should be solid, but on the other hand we are given up complete control over this d5 square for white. So pros and cons. And after bishop d4, Gumi actually played knight to f3. Yeah, so now there might be possibly some ideas of playing h5 if it's white to move. Maybe. And if bishop takes. I was thinking this might be interesting. And then simply take on e5 because there's a pin here, so if pawn takes then we have bishop takes potentially. Yeah, this might be an idea. Not sure it works, but just one attacking idea to look at. Okay, some further developments in Kiro's game. Let's go to that one. After 12 castles, he actually went for g6, which I thought he might do. Bishop e3, knight to b6. So both sides are really gunning for this d5 square. We need 2, bishop g7. So yeah, it's clear that black wants to castle and play d5. And here we have yeah, I think black shouldn't have any problems here really. Especially if he gets d5 in, he has solved most of his opening problems. But let's actually jump to Einar Hjalti and Bragi. which we have here. And the interesting thing about this game is actually that Einar Hjalti is down to 30 minutes and they only played 10 moves. So he still has 30 moves left to reach the time control. So roughly 1 minute for his remaining moves, but okay, of course we should mention that he gets 30 seconds for each move as well. So let's, well, so only one move since we left it. After knight g4 he played bishop to e4, which Brahe answered with queen a5. Yeah, queen a5, of course avoiding the queen trade, which would be well, which is a good idea because, well, white is down to 30 minutes, so you want to keep pieces on the board, keep the position tricky. And also you're ready for rook d8 maybe. White went h3 here, and I don't think we have to wait long here for black to go knight h6. That's looks like the only move. And later this knight can jump to f5, maybe d4. So white might think about g4, but that's highly committal. And black might try some breaks there, like f6. But we'll see. It's not completely crazy. Yeah. Also maybe maybe a bit too quick because black can also play rook d8, of course, which was perhaps one of the ideas of queen a5, clearing the square. And well, eventually we were forced to play knight h6 anyway. You should mention that even though it looks good to give black double pawns here, we're also weakening our light squares. There's options like bishop a6, bishop e6, bishop f5. And white might miss this bishop in the long run when the position opens up. And black also has some dynamic options like rook b8. And then you might use one of the pawns later. But okay, Brahe went actually knight h6 immediately. So now Einar is under the 30-minute mark, 29 minutes. So already 40 minutes behind on the clock, which could become a factor later in the game if things get complicated. But we'll see, we'll see. Yeah, not a lot of moves actually in the other games. So we're actually going to take a short break now and be back in 5 to 10 minutes. And we're back. One man, one desire. I need to actually figure out how to play some. Need to play some music while we're on the break. That's much more soothing. But we're back. So let's move along. I just went into the room just to check out how the players are doing. And Einar is using a lot of time, and he's still thinking after knight h6. He's down to, well, probably more. He was down to 22 minutes when I left the room, the playing hall actually. And yeah, okay, he made a move now. 21 minutes, so he made a move while I was going into this room. Queen e1. Yeah, Queen e1. Okay, number one, we're getting off the default, so this is not coming with tempo, but maybe it's not the worst thing in the world to wait for this move and then move the queen. We're introducing some tactical factors in the position, not right now, but later we could imagine the knight moving and the queen being attacked, and it's a classical tactic that if the queen is unprotected, then knight d5 might hit e7, and after queen takes e1, knight takes e7. Could be a threat, but that's given that this knight is no longer on c6. Another idea is simply activating the queen to h4. So he might even be thinking about, I mean, g4, queen h4, f5 might be an idea when this knight starts to feel the heat. So actually the move knight on h6 to f5 would not surprise me a whole lot in this position, because otherwise you risk this knight becoming a bad piece. Yeah, and queen h4 also. White might start thinking about pawn grabbing with bishop takes c6 or queen takes e7. And Einar is a notorious pawn grabber. I think he's second in history after Viktor Korchnoi as a pawn grabber, so look out for that. But queen e1 has been played. It's on the board, and now Rai is using his tremendous time edge over 45 minutes and trying to figure out the move, course of action here, but I think he will play knight into f5. Okay, we have some moves in the marquee matchup. Hannes against Helgi. Let's jump over to that game. Here we have it. We left it after e takes d5. Actually a theoretical position where d4 takes c5 is the most common move, and queen c2 to f5 is the second most common move. And Hannes actually went for the robots, went for knight to h4, which also makes sense, has been played by Krasenkov among others. Mikhail Krasenkov. Pawn took on d4, that makes sense, opening up the rook against the queen. Bishop took on d4. Bishop to c5. And then bishop back to c3. And here the computer isn't in love with white's position. It says that black actually has a slight edge after a move such as rook e8. and there's no reason why black shouldn't be fine. I mean, he's fully developed. His bishops are on good diagonals, and he doesn't have any particular weaknesses. Meanwhile, white perhaps has misplaced one knight. Okay, it might jump to f5, I guess, but yeah, but still all to play for. See what happens. We'll see what happens. Henrik and Gisela, have they made some move? Yeah, we'll have them after this interesting knight f takes d5. Let's see what happened in this game. Yeah, before we do that, we had a question: what are the ratings of the players? So let's actually just have a look at the players list. These are the pairings, but this is the player list. These are not the pairings. This is just the player list. The top seed is Grandmaster Stefansson, 2,548. He has been as high as 2604. Jens Stingersson, 2537. He has been in the high 2500s. Hjörvar Grétarsson, he is Iceland's youngest Grandmaster, and he's on the rise. Surely he wants to go for 2600. He's been steadily improving his rating and wants to go for the top board in the Icelandic Olympiad team. Then we have Grandmaster Henrik Danielsson, who is below 2500 now, but usually over it. Grandmaster Helgi Ásgrétarsson, 2462. He has been inactive for several years, practicing law, and actually teaching it, I believe. He was the 1994 World Junior Champion. And then we have some IMs, one GM and 2 FMs. So the average rating is 2456, which makes this tournament quite strong. So moving right along. We had some moves. Knight f takes d5 was played. Yeah, we have a bunch of moves here. Knight f takes d5 was played. He actually took with the pawn. We thought taking with the rook might be better, but okay, we only briefly looked at it. Knight f takes d5, took with the pawn. Bishop takes on f3. Bishop takes on f3. Pawn into e4. Yeah, one thing I missed earlier was perhaps e4 immediately here. I will just take it with the queen. And things will be equal. But okay, bishop takes f3, bishop takes f3, pawn to e4. He also took with the queen here. But now white has bishop pair. Yeah, e4, queen takes e4, bishop takes c3. Queen takes e7, rook takes e7, and rook c2. And Henrik likes his endings. But now the question is, after rook c2, white does have the bishop pair, but is this bishop really so useful? Okay, if you keep some rooks on the board, it might be useful, but if you try to activate this bishop, I mean on this diagonal, black can always play just pawn to f5 and just completely shut it down. So it's hard to get around to any weaknesses. And okay, if f5 we have this pawn chain here, how do we attack it with the bishop? I mean, you have to really you know, run around the board to to get at it. And I'm not sure. Not sure if black should have any particular problems here. And anytime we take on b6 or something like that, then it's looking drawish. So actually, black to move right now. Rook c2. We're threatening to double the rooks, but can we just move the bishop somewhere? Hope and pray that we're okay. Seems like it to me, but we'll see if Henrik has any different ideas. But for now, it looks like it shouldn't be much. I have a feeling. We might see a draw in this game. But like I said, Henrik is very strong in the endgame phase and usually is picking up his points in that phase of the game. Do we have any more action? Can make here then only a couple of moves. Yeah, maybe. Well, let's just start, with the same roundabout. Start with Gummi here. And once again, if you have any any requests, of course, just let me know. You can send me a message here on Twitch. You can like my Facebook page, where you can send me some messages as well. And finally, there's Twitter. Actually, in this graphic, above me here, you're gonna see some ads, but also you're gonna see my Twitter and Facebook, where you can interact if you want to ask me any questions during the stream. No problem. No problems in answering questions. We'll do it now. So yeah, we actually wanted to go back to this game. It's Gummi Kjartansson against Héðinn Steingrímsson. Knight f3 was played. Héðinn went rook to e8, bishop to e2, queen to b6. Yeah, the time is starting to even out a little bit. Gummi had about a 40-minute time match earlier, but now it's down to only 18 minutes. Gummi is thinking here. And to me it seems like black is okay here. I mean, the only downside is of course the d5 square, as always, but to compensate for it, he has a strong e5 square. He seems to have the king side under control. He can lock things up with h5 if he wants to, if he needs to. So now black perhaps wants to trade the queens. Well, if he plays queen b6, then doesn't really have a choice. Should we look at if white just takes it? White just takes it and tries to take on e5. Looks fair enough. Yeah, if we start with the bishop, then maybe we flip and take it on f3. Maybe. Let's have a look at this first. Pawn takes e5 for the moment. White has won a pawn. This guy is hanging. Well, maybe he can take on g4 as well. So yeah, I'm not sure. Let's try this one. This is very complicated actually. A lot of Swiss and souks and stuff. Maybe bishop takes h4 is working here. And the pawns should even out. If we attack the knight, we can always defend like this. Take with the bishop first. I mean, it should just be about the same. We can take on h4. And maybe if he wants to be clever, maybe we counter the cleverness. No, count 96. So let's not be too clever. So okay, white might win a pawn here actually, so let's be more careful. Bishop takes e5. So this is forced, so this is something we must look at. Queen takes b6, knight takes b6, and bishop takes e5. Can we take on f3? I'm just speculating. I mean, I'm not claiming anything. Let's say we take on... Yeah, but should be... We can't take on g2, can we? Okay, h2. Oh, bishop takes d6. Yeah, okay. So this one, we can... Well, then b6 hangs. I'm getting a headache, so get them pills here, ibuprofen for your headache. They might need one after calculating this. I can calculate anything, man. What's going on? I'm not really calculating. I'm just putting moves on the board. Put it on the board and have a look at it, man. That's a good thing about commentating. There are no consequences to your moves. So bishop d6, rook h2. Yeah, that's why I was worried about taking g2. There's no square for the bishop. Yeah, so let's take here then. Let's take on e2. But white is up a pawn here at the moment, but I have a feeling we might win it back. Yeah, like this. Knight c4 hitting the rook. And one idea is if rook back, we can take on e4. Rook takes, knight d2 check. We won the pawn back, and we have perhaps even a slightly better ending. If you attack a pawn on b7, still have a pawn. We attack your knight, but then you attack our rook. Then we attack your pawn. And if you took our pawn! We took our pawn! And then everything is equal again, and black shouldn't have problems. Ideas like knight a3, taking on c3. So yeah, it looks fine for black, and yeah, I'm sure black wouldn't play this queen b6 move. Wouldn't play this move without calculating that the consequences were okay for him. So queen b6 must be okay, and most likely white will not take, but of course he's been thinking for a while now, so of course he's thinking about all these possibilities. Now we can actually take the color of the square. Okay. Yeah. Let's move on to. Let's just go in the same order unless we have some requests. Þórhallsson against Gretarsson, Þröstur against Hjörvar. Queen e2, bishop g7, and we have a bunch of moves. Rook f to d1. Still, both sides are lining up their forces against this d5 square, so the battle is revolving around d5. Will black get it in, or will white prevent the rook d3? Putting more forces against d5. And okay, it's clear that if black plays a move like rook a d8, we play here. Still, there's no d5. I mean, if we just count, there are 4 guys attacking d5, 4 guys defending it, so we can't take it. So this is under a pawn. So it looks like he went another way then. He went knight after d7, rook a to d1. So now this is attack. So knight c4, defending, bishop c1, knight c5, attacking this rook. And it actually doesn't have any good square. No self-respecting grandmaster is going to play rook f3 here. It's just a horrible square for the rook. I mean, there's nothing going on this on the f file. You're blocking your bishop. It's just a bad square. So Thursday, of course, played knight d5, an in-between move or a swish and zug. So what happens now? One idea for black is to try and take advantage of these weakened squares here, d4 and f4. Just take it, because white can't take with the pawn. If he takes with the pawn, he's taking away the e6 and then c6 squares, which are important, especially the e6 square for a knight, which might jump here. Now we have ideas like knight f4, knight d4. And black seems probably even better, because, well, this square we don't have a similar square for white. And notice this pawn on g6. It's always important that you play against your opponent's knight. Kasparov used to always do this: knight on g3, knight on b3. You play against it with a pawn on g6, so you restrict the knight. Doesn't have as many options. Okay, this is actually on the board. Bishop takes d5, rook takes d5. So here we're thinking here. Both actually have 37 minutes. And I think I like black here. I think we should jump to yeah, Einar against Bragi against Thorfinnsson, which was interesting because Einar had used a lot of time. So queen e1, yeah, we protected knight f5, otherwise this knight could be out of play. Knight d5, so now we see that his idea was more or less to try and exchange queens, and that's what happened. Rook takes e1, knight jump to g3. We want to exchange this, so bishop has to go back to d3. No, he actually went knight c7, counterattack. Ah, rook b8, and knight to a6. Interesting. No, black has two options. One is to take. Of course, then you have double pawns. Not the end of the world, but not something you want. But on the other hand, you have some active pieces here after bishop f5. So this pawn is attacked, let's say c3, but then rook d8. We have active rooks. This guy can't get developed just yet. So yeah, and black isn't even down a pawn, so looks like active play for black. Active play for black here. And if you move back, then yeah. Okay, white is not going for the perpetual. He's going to take on c5. And I don't think black can sacrifice a pawn like this, because the position is not open enough for your your bishop here. No, I don't like it. He's gonna take on a6. And he already has, okay. I think that's the only option. So bishop takes c6 is of course forced. Even though he hasn't played it. Okay, he's played it. So Einar with 20 minutes. And he still has 23 moves to make. So less than a minute plus increment per move. Meanwhile, Brahe has 50 minutes. I think bishop f5 is the most natural move. Although I missed one thing perhaps. What if we just attack the knight like this? We don't really have a square if we go back on g4. So the natural move is not working, so let's find something else. That's what he probably will do. Find something else. Ja, het mag ook wel zo in. Aye. So, yeah, Brahe is still thinking here. Yeah, he might use some time since maybe there's no obvious move since bishop f5 is not working. Rook d8 maybe. It's quite possible Brahe. I mean, Brahe maybe is playing faster because Einar is down on his clock a bit, so maybe he or in this position, I mean, it looks like you just want to take on e4. It looks like bishop d3 might be forced because you can't give up the bishop pair. So potentially he overlooked this idea here of knight c7 and knight a6. It's possible, but also he might have thought that this is just fine for him, which is also well within the realms of reality. Okay, Stefansson and Helgi Ás Petersson. We didn't think much of the white position there. Bishop c3, queen c7, knight f5, rook f to e8, and queen to b2. So white is creating some diagonal pressure here on g7 in cooperation with the knight. But not really threatening anything at the moment, and actually black is well developed and fully developed and ready to meet white. Meet him in the middle. So yeah, probably this looks around equal, not really anything special going on for white. Black might think about 95 for such a move. Yeah, so 22 was the last move. And final game is Henrik against Gisla. Yeah, I thought not too much was happening actually. So this is the second round in a row where Henrik is white against Gummi. They're both called Gummi, common name in Iceland. So we actually have a bunch of moves here. Bishop e4. I mean, black had to move the bishop, otherwise rook c1. So bishop e4, e1 4, rook takes c8, knight takes c8. Rook c1, knight back to b6, h4, and h5. Okay. Yeah, the question is how to set up the pawns here for black. I'm not too sure on this. h5, king f1, f6. I'm not too sure because all of a sudden maybe white has some targets now for his light squared bishop in the future. Yeah, we can imagine way in the future that g6 and h5 can become weak, because now if we swing the bishop around in the endgame, then we can attack something, but before we couldn't do it. With the pawns on the black pawns here, it looked much more difficult to generate anything, but now they look a bit weaker. And after a4, king f7, bishop e2. Yeah, now I think I might prefer white slightly. I mean, I think most people will take white here. It looks like he's the only one who can really play for anything because of the bishop here. We should mention that this looks quite dangerous for black. If king e6, we lose the knight right away. Rook e5, we don't lose it right away, but I have a feeling we will soon. Okay, I mean, worst case scenario, we can take here, and this pin isn't going away, so we can play f4, and the rook is going to have to go to a horrible square. And then maybe, yeah, we can think about this, and then maybe bishop d3, trapping the rook. So taking on d5 is out of the question. So what to do? I don't think white can ever think about taking on b6. I think the ending with opposite colored bishops just looks way too drawish. So small, but actually very small, but I think nagging edge for white. And as always, I can sum up this edge for you in one picture. My favorite picture. This is the edge for white, and this is black suffering here. Somehow all of a sudden Chewbacca is suffering in this position, but that's what happens. So bishop e2, and yeah, both sides are well, we're not in time trouble. We're not in time trouble. 26 moves, they have 30 minutes left. And the position is somewhat simplified, so almost no chances of any time trouble business there. So let's move on. Moving on. Just gonna quickly browse here off screen. Let's see which game is heating up, if any. Yeah, and for later on we might add some games from the challengers just to have more variety, you know, of rating of players and games to look at. Because when things are moving slow, it's, yeah, can tend to be quiet, and then when we have only 5 games to look at. Okay, Hjalti. King F2 was played. Here's the mess. Yeah, so let's just start back at the top with Kjartansson and Stengrimsson. So again, unless you have some requests, I'll just go through the games one by one in this order. So only one move. And wow, Gumi has been thinking, while we looked at all the games, he went down from, yeah, the time is now equal, 30 minutes each. Gumi thought for like 20 minutes on rook to d4. In line. White rook to d4. What the hell is this rook doing on d4? That is a good question. Yeah, I'm not sure. Okay, he wants to prevent the trade of queens with rook d4. And perhaps didn't find any. I mean, okay, there's no good square for the queen to avoid the trade because you can take on c3. So knight. So now maybe you can think about knight d5 next move. And yeah, it's sort of a weird piece configuration. Think about this position. I've talked about it before. Neither side has any clear pawn breaks. I mean, black has. I mean, by pawn breaks, I mean moves like f5. Black is never going to play f5. So what breaks does he have really? Okay, white might think about h5 in some positions, but it doesn't really look very dangerous at the moment. So when we have very few or no pawn breaks, it's all about piece play, and at the moment the pieces sort of look like they can't be improved so easily. Okay, maybe black would like to put this bishop on g7 at some point, but he also has to watch out for d6. But I have a feeling he might play. Yeah, I don't know. If bishop f8 is okay, then maybe it's a move he wants to play. And then on knight d5, just move the queen somewhere. Yeah, but like, yeah, you have an knight on e5, but the other knight is also ready to come to e5. But they both want to be there, so where do they go? The bishop on g4 is stopping queen side. So the pieces all look okay, but where to go, what to do? You know, that's what chess is such a tough game. So I have a feeling, yeah, Kieran has already thought for 3 minutes, so I think they might start catching up on the clock here. Let's start to catch up. Well, what I'm talking about, they already caught up. What I mean is, yeah, they might think a bit here, so Gumi might regain his time edge. That's what I was thinking, but couldn't really articulate. And okay, if you have any questions, comments here in the little graphic above you right now, you can see my Twitter, my Facebook, and you can add like the Facebook page or ask me some questions on Twitter. Let's see. I think things are okay. Let's just in case. The software told me it dropped some frames, but it seems to be okay still. So Gumi, no, Healing is thinking here after rook d4. Let's move on. Yeah, we talked a bit about this position. This look dynamically equal is something you tend to say when you don't really know, and it's hard to say what's going on really. Like I said, the pieces are all dressed up, but nowhere to go. So rook takes d5 was played, and we're back to Hjörvar and Thruster with white. So yesterday Hjörvar drew against Stengursson while Thruster lost against Brage. And here Hjörvar went to rook after d8, protecting the pawn, and this means that you don't have to worry about any b3 move, attacking this knight, which now is free to move. So white did not bother with that, but played rook to e1. Yeah, preparing to evacuate. Full evacuation of the rooks. He doesn't want the rook to be hit with tempo, because if it's back to move here, we're gonna play knight f4. We're gonna have a fork here, and if you take, the position is gonna open up for black. This is gonna fall. Bishop has opened up. We have a wonderful square on e5. This is attacked. I mean, blah. This is like, yeah, cringe-worthy for black. So rook d to d1, and the idea is after knight f4, which might still be played. You don't want to take it at all, because then black is just dominating. So if knight f4, then yeah, move the queen. I mean, it doesn't have any squares here, so it has to go to f3. Maybe queen f1, but yeah, queen f3 looks more active and natural. Yeah, and this looks quite nice for black. I mean, nothing concrete still, but quite solid. This bishop isn't really active yet for white, and this knight at the moment doesn't have any great prospects. So maybe white wants to yeah, he might think about improving here. Bishop f1, and maybe think about something like h4, h5. Just to try and undermine g6 and get this f5 square, but it's a double-edged sword, because you might also open up the f file, which maybe only black can use. So, but yeah, black to move here. I think I like black's chances here. Hjörvar 24 minutes, Thruster 32, so 8-minute time match for Thruster, but doesn't look like there will be any heavy time trouble in this game. Yeah. I thought I already edited it. Seems like I always have problems with I always get locked out, so I update the title, but then it's not working. So let's log in here real quick and update the title of the broadcast. Real quick, round 2, y'all. Update. Broadcast update successful. Yeah. So 95. How long would preparation for a tournament like this be? I mean, in general, you want to